The night I met Elijah Brooks. I threw an umbrella at him. In my defense, he was following me. It was almost midnight. Rain was pouring. The street was empty. And every crime documentary I had ever watched suddenly became extremely relevant. So when I noticed a tall man walking behind me for 3 straight blocks, I did what any reasonable Korean woman would do. I panicked. Then I weaponized my umbrella. The umbrella hit him directly in the chest. Hard. The man stopped walking, stared at me, then slowly looked down at the wallet in his hand. My wallet. Oh no. Immediately I knew 2 things. First, he wasn't a criminal. Second, I was an idiot. The stranger raised one eyebrow. Feel better? I wanted the rain to drown me. I can explain. You attacked me with weather equipment. It was self-defense. You dropped your wallet. That's not the point. A laugh escaped him. Not a loud laugh. Just enough to annoy me. Because now I was embarrassed, and he was attractive. A terrible combination. I grabbed my wallet. Thank you. Then immediately started walking away before my dignity suffered further damage. Unfortunately, the universe wasn't finished humiliating me. Because 3 minutes later, I slipped. Not a cute stumble. Not a graceful recovery. I mean full disaster. Straight into a puddle. Both feet gone. Gone. 1 second I was walking. The next I was conducting an unexpected scientific study on wet concrete. The worst part? He saw everything. Every second. When I looked up, Elijah was standing there trying very hard not to laugh. Do it, I said. What? Laugh. Finish the job. That did it. The man completely lost the battle. Now he was laughing openly. And honestly, I hated how good he looked doing it. Rain dripped from his dark coat. His smile was unfairly attractive. And suddenly I realized something. This was probably the most embarrassing night of my life. Then my phone died. Right in my hand. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. I stared at the black screen. Then at the rain. Then at my ruined shoes. Then at Elijah, who unfortunately looked way too calm. You look like you're considering violence again, he said. I am. A pause. Then he pointed across the street. A small convenience store. Still open. Come on. No. You have no phone. I know. You missed the last bus. I know. It's raining. I know. Another pause. Then he smiled. That was my second warning sign. The first was how attractive he was. The second was realizing I actually wanted to follow him. And somehow, that turned out to be the bigger mistake. The convenience store smelled like instant noodles and poor decisions. Which honestly matched my current situation perfectly. I sat across from Elijah wearing a borrowed hoodie from a store while my soaked clothes slowly dried. Humiliating. Extremely humiliating. Elijah returned carrying 2 cups of coffee. Then stopped. Oh no. I narrowed my eyes. What? His expression became suspiciously amused. You found another weapon. I looked down. The umbrella. I was still holding it. Ready for combat apparently. Trust issues keep people alive. Is that what we're calling this? Yes. Elijah sat down across from me. For a few seconds neither of us spoke. Rain tapped softly against the glass. Outside, the streets were nearly empty. Then Elijah nodded toward my coffee. Drink. I frowned. That's an order. That's concern. Dangerous. Very dangerous. Because concern from attractive strangers should honestly be illegal. I took a sip. Then immediately regretted it. Hot. Very hot. I nearly burned my tongue. Again. Elijah watched the entire thing happen. You have a difficult relationship with beverages. I pointed at him. Don't start. His shoulders shook slightly. Now he was trying not to laugh again. Rude. Deeply rude. 5 minutes later we somehow started talking. Then 30 minutes passed. Then an hour. Which was strange. Because I usually hated talking to strangers. Yet somehow I was telling this man things. Not everything. Just enough. About my 2 jobs. My mother's medical bills. How exhausted I was. How expensive breathing had become recently. Elijah mostly listened. Which somehow made me talk more. At one point I finally stopped. You know absolutely nothing about me. I know you attack innocent people. Besides that. A faint smile appeared. I'm Elijah. Wow. Incredible. Mysterious. You asked. Fair. Then his phone rang. The screen lit up briefly. And for the first time that night, something felt off. Because the name flashing across the screen wasn't normal. It wasn't mom. Or boss. Or friend. It was board chairman. I blinked. Once. Twice. Interesting. Very interesting. Elijah immediately declined the call. Then another came. And another. And another. All ignored. Now I was definitely paying attention. What do you do? His expression remained calm. Difficult question. That was not an answer. I narrowed my eyes. Are you rich? The man actually choked on his coffee, which felt like victory. A small one. But still. After recovering, Elijah looked at me. Why would you ask that? You have rich person posture. Silence. Then, what does that even mean? You sit like someone who has never worried about rent. For the first time all night, Elijah didn't laugh. Interesting. Because suddenly he looked away. Toward the rain outside. Like I had accidentally hit something. A real thing. Then quietly he said, I worry about different things. That answer stayed with me. For some reason. A few minutes later the rain finally slowed. I stood. So this is where we never see each other again. Elijah looked up immediately. And for the briefest second, the expression on his face surprised me. Disappointment. Gone almost instantly. But there. Interesting. Very interesting. I grabbed my umbrella. My wallet. My coffee. My dignity. Your dignity left an hour ago. I gasped dramatically. He smiled. Then I started walking toward the door. Halfway there, something stopped me. I turned back. Elijah was watching me. Not casually. Carefully. Like he was trying to memorize something. You know, I said slowly. What? You still seem suspicious. A laugh escaped him. Finally. A real one. The kind that reached his eyes. And somehow, that was the moment I should have been worried. Because I didn't know it yet. But that rainy night wasn't our first meeting. And Elijah Brooks already knew exactly who I was. The next morning, I discovered two things. First, my mother had secretly stopped taking part of her medication because it was too expensive. Second, life clearly hated me personally. I was standing in our kitchen holding prescription receipts and questioning every decision I'd made since birth when my phone rang. Unknown number. Dangerous. I answered anyway. Hello. Mississippi Park? Depends who's asking. A pause. Then, we'd like to invite you for an interview. I froze. Because this wasn't just any company. This was one of the biggest firms in Seoul. The same company that had rejected me twice already. What changed? I asked suspiciously. The recruiter hesitated. Then laughed awkwardly. I'm actually not sure. Interesting. Very interesting. 3 days later, I was sitting in their lobby trying not to look unemployed. The interview went perfectly. Almost suspiciously perfectly. Then the interviewer smiled. We'd like to offer you the position. Immediately. No waiting. No second round. No suffering. Just yes. That alone should have terrified me. Because good things never happen this smoothly. Still, I accepted. Obviously. Rent wasn't going to pay itself. For the first time in months, things started improving. My mother was smiling again. Bills were getting paid. I was sleeping more than 4 hours a night. Everything felt strangely stable, which should have been my warning sign. Because exactly 2 weeks later, I saw Elijah again. Completely by accident. At least that's what I thought. I was leaving work carrying coffee when someone stepped directly into my path. I looked up, then stopped walking. Oh no. Elijah smiled. Oh no. What are you doing here? I work here. Silence. I blinked. Once. Twice. Then looked up at the building. Then back at him. Then back at the building. Then back at him again. You work here? Yes. Like employed? His smile widened. That's usually how it works. I hated how funny he found me. Deeply. What department? A pause. Then. I own it. What? I stared at him. He stared back. Calm. Composed. Completely unbothered. Meanwhile my brain had left the conversation entirely. You own. I pointed at the building. This building? Technically several. No. Yes. No. G1. No. Suddenly every strange thing from the convenience store replayed in my head. The calls. The confidence. The mysterious answers. The rich person posture. Oh my God. You lied to me. I didn't. You absolutely did. You never asked if I owned multinational companies. That was such a ridiculous defense that I almost respected it. Almost. I folded my arms. You let me sit there and talk about rich people. I found it educational. I gasped. This man was enjoying himself. Dangerous. Extremely dangerous. Then his phone rang. He glanced at the screen. And immediately his expression changed. Not dramatically. Just enough. Cold. Sharp. Professional. The smile disappeared. Interesting. Before answering, his eyes returned to mine. And for some reason, he looked annoyed. Not by me. By the call. Like whoever was on the other end had interrupted something. Then he answered. Yes. Silence. His jaw tightened. Then, I'm not discussing this again. The line disconnected. I watched him carefully. What was that? For the first time since I'd met him. Elijah looked tired. My sister. Oh. Family drama. The most reliable disaster on earth. What does she want? A humorless laugh escaped him. To run my life. And judging by the way he said it, this conversation was far from over. I should have walked away. Honestly. Every bad decision in my life started with curiosity. And Elijah Brooks was becoming very curious. So your sister controls your life? Elijah looked offended. No. A pause. Then. She tries. There it was. Family drama. I knew it. The man looked too calm to have a normal family. A few days later, I learned exactly how correct I was. Because I was leaving work when a luxury car pulled up beside me. The kind of car that looked expensive enough to have opinions. The window rolled down. A woman sat inside. Elegant. Beautiful. Dangerous. Immediately dangerous. You must be G1. Oh no. I already hated this conversation. You are. Hannah Brooks. Of course. The sister. Because apparently my life enjoyed plot twists now. She smiled. The problem was, nothing about it felt friendly. Get in. I stared at her. No. Her smile didn't move. That wasn't a request. I stared harder. That sounds exactly like a request I'm not accepting. For a second, I thought she might be annoyed. Instead, she laughed. Interesting. Very interesting. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from her in a luxury restaurant questioning my survival instincts. You make my brother smile. I nearly choked. What? Hannah sipped her coffee calmly. You make him smile. Why was she saying it like a crime? I don't know how to respond to that. You shouldn't. This woman was exhausting. Then she leaned forward slightly. And suddenly the conversation changed. You've seen him happy. The teasing disappeared. The sarcasm disappeared. For the first time. She looked serious. He wasn't like that before. Something about the way she said it made me pause. Because underneath all the control, there was concern. Real concern. Interesting. Then Hannah ruined the moment immediately. If you hurt him, I'll ruin your life. There it was. Now we were back on familiar ground. I pointed at her. See? That's the insane behavior I expected. Good. You threatened me. I warned you. That's worse. The woman actually smiled. And somehow, that terrified me more. The next week became dangerous. Not because of Hannah. Because of Elijah. Because now that I knew he liked being around me, I started noticing things. Small things. Annoying things. The way he remembered everything I said. The way coffee magically appeared when I worked late. The way problems somehow solved themselves before I even mentioned them. Then one afternoon I walked into my mother's apartment and froze. My mother was laughing. Actually laughing. For the first time in months. Across from her sat Elijah. Drinking tea. Like this was normal. I stared. He stared back. Calm. Always calm. What are you doing here? My mother invited him. Mom answered immediately. Traitor. Absolute traitor. Elijah looked entirely too comfortable. Then my mother smiled. The smile. The one mothers use when they're planning something. Dangerous. Very dangerous. G1, she said sweetly. No. I haven't said anything yet. No. Elijah was trying not to laugh. I could see it. Then my mother dropped the bomb. I like him. Silence. Complete silence. Because somehow, that was more terrifying than anything Hannah had said. And judging by Elijah's smile, the man knew he was winning. The problem with my mother liking Elijah? She became completely unreasonable. Suddenly this woman had opinions. Constant opinions. Elijah is handsome. I ignored her. Elijah is polite. I kept walking. Elijah has beautiful manners. I considered moving out. Then one evening she looked up from dinner and casually said, "You should marry him." I nearly died. Immediately. Right there at the table. Mother. What? We're not even dating. A pause. Then. Yet. Traitor. Absolute traitor. Unfortunately, things got worse. Because somewhere along the way, Elijah became part of my routine. Morning texts. Coffee. Random conversations. Late-night phone calls. The kind that start with, "Are you awake?" and somehow end 40 minutes later discussing whether pigeons secretly hate humans. Normal friendship things. Dangerous friendship things. Then one Friday evening, Elijah invited me to dinner. Which wasn't unusual anymore. At least that's what I told myself. The restaurant overlooked the Han River. The city lights reflected across the water. Everything felt suspiciously romantic. I should have been worried. Instead, I was eating expensive steak. Mistake. A huge mistake. Because halfway through dinner, a woman approached our table. Beautiful. Elegant. Perfect. The kind of woman who looked expensive. Immediately I didn't like where this was going. She smiled at Elijah. Not at me. At him. Interesting. Very interesting. Elijah. His entire expression changed. Not warmly. Not happily. Just. Tired. "Oh no," I muttered. The woman looked at me. Then back at him. Then smiled. And somehow that smile felt like a problem. "You didn't tell me you were seeing someone." "Excuse me? Seeing someone?" I looked at Elijah. Elijah looked like he wanted the earth to open. "Also interesting." "G1, he said calmly. Which meant absolutely nothing. Because now I had questions. Many questions. Dangerous questions. The woman sat down uninvited. A bold move. I almost respected it. Almost. Then she extended her hand toward me. "I'm Claire." The name sounded expensive too. Everything about this woman sounded expensive. I shook her hand carefully. Then waited. Because something was coming. I could feel it. Sure enough. It feels strange meeting the woman who replaced me. Silence. Immediate silence. I slowly turned toward Elijah. Very slowly. Because murder was illegal. And unfortunately, I respected the law. Mostly. "You have an ex-girlfriend." Elijah closed his eyes briefly. The guilty man maneuver. I knew it. "You have an ex-girlfriend." G1. "You have an ex-girlfriend." Claire took a sip of wine. Completely enjoying herself. Villain behavior. Professional villain behavior. Then she smiled sweetly. "We were together for 3 years. 3 years. 3. I stared at Elijah. Elijah stared at the table. Then Claire delivered the final attack. "We almost got engaged." Oh. Interesting. Very interesting. Because suddenly dinner wasn't dinner anymore. Now it was emotional warfare. And judging by the look on Elijah's face, he knew he was losing. I should have been angry. Actually, I was angry. The problem was, I was also jealous. Which was significantly more embarrassing. Claire smiled like she already knew that. Dangerous woman. Very dangerous woman. Meanwhile, Elijah looked like a man actively regretting every decision that led to this table. "Good. Suffer. You almost got engaged?" I asked calmly. The calm was fake. Very fake. G1. "No, let her finish." Claire happily accepted the invitation. Of course she did. We dated for 3 years. I nodded. That's a long time. It was. Another nod. Very serious. It was. I smiled. "Oh, I hate this." Claire laughed. Elijah looked exhausted. Honestly? Deserved. Then something interesting happened. Claire's smile faded slightly. Not completely. Just enough. Because when she looked at Elijah, he wasn't looking at her. Not once. Not even accidentally. Every time she spoke, his eyes went to me. Every single time. Interesting. Very interesting. Claire noticed too. And suddenly she wasn't having as much fun. "You're really over me," she said quietly. The table went still. Elijah answered immediately. Yes. No hesitation. No confusion. No drama. Just yes. And somehow, that shocked her more than it shocked me. A small silence followed. Then Claire smiled again. But this time it looked different. Sad. Almost relieved. Well, she said softly, standing up. That answers that. I blinked. Wait, that was it? No wine throwing? No dramatic speech? No emotional terrorism? What kind of mature adult behavior was this? Claire picked up her bag, then looked at me. Good luck. I frowned. With what? She glanced toward Elijah, then back at me, keeping up with him. And just like that, she left, leaving me alone with the source of all my current emotional problems. I stared at Elijah. Elijah stared back, carefully, like a man approaching a wild animal. Smart. Very smart. You were engaged? Almost. You forgot to mention that. I didn't forget. Worse. Much worse. I folded my arms. When exactly were you planning to tell me? A pause. Then, when it became relevant, I laughed. Not because it was funny, because my life was ridiculous. Oh, we're defining relevant differently. G1. No. We weren't together. Fair. Unfortunately. I hated when he made reasonable points. Then Elijah sighed. The real kind. The tired kind. And suddenly, he looked nervous. Interesting. Because Elijah Brooks never looked nervous. Not around investors. Not around Hannah. Not around anyone. Yet somehow, one annoyed Korean woman was causing problems. Good. Then he looked directly at me. And quietly said, I didn't tell you because I didn't want you thinking about her. That stopped me. Immediately. Because that answer felt honest. Dangerously honest. And honest Elijah was always the hardest version to argue with. I looked away first. Annoying. Then he made it worse. Again. I wanted you thinking about me. Silence. Complete silence. Because excuse me, sir? That was not an appropriate sentence to say in public. My heart immediately became uncooperative. Traitor. Absolute traitor. Then my phone rang. Perfect timing. I answered instantly. Anything to escape. Hello. The voice on the other end made my stomach drop. It was my mother. Crying. And suddenly, nothing else mattered. Mom. Silence. Then, G1. Her voice broke. And every alarm inside me went off. Immediately. Something was wrong. Mom. Silence. Then another broken sob. And suddenly I was already moving. The restaurant. The argument. Claire. Gone. Nothing mattered anymore. What happened? A nurse took the phone gently. Mississippi Park. Your mother collapsed at home. We're bringing her into surgery now. The world stopped. Just for a second. Then everything moved too fast. Hospital. Traffic. Fear. I don't remember most of the drive. I only remember one thing. Elijah never let go of my hand. Not once. By the time we reached the hospital, surgery had already started. And suddenly I was sitting in a waiting room staring at white walls while my entire body shook. The worst part? Nobody could tell me anything. 1 hour passed. Then 2. Then 3. At some point Elijah disappeared. I barely noticed. Then he came back carrying coffee. Of course. Always coffee. You should drink something. I stared at the cup. Then at him. Then suddenly I started crying. Not gracefully. Not beautifully. I mean ugly crying. Full emotional collapse. Because I was exhausted. Terrified. And tired of pretending I could handle everything alone. Without saying a word, Elijah sat beside me and pulled me against him. No speeches. No advice. Just there. And honestly, that helped more. Hours later, the surgeon finally appeared. My heart nearly exploded. The surgery was successful. Relief hit so hard I almost fell over. Then came the second sentence. The dangerous sentence. However, there are treatment options your mother hasn't been taking. I frowned. What? The doctor looked confused. Mississippi Park. Your mother stopped several treatments months ago. My stomach dropped. What do you mean stopped? The doctor hesitated. Then, she said she couldn't afford them. Oh no. No. No, no, no. Because suddenly every missing prescription made sense. Every excuse. Every smile. Every lie. My mother had been choosing money over her health. Again. I closed my eyes. Immediately angry. Immediately heartbroken. Then the doctor added. Actually. A pause. Someone has been paying part of her medical expenses anonymously. I froze. Beside me, Elijah went completely still. Interesting. Very interesting. Anonymous? I asked slowly. The doctor nodded. For almost a year. A year. A whole year. I turned toward Elijah immediately. His expression remained calm. Too calm. Dangerously calm. Oh. Oh. No. Elijah looked away. Traitor. My eyes narrowed. You. Silence. Then. It wasn't much. It was a year. You needed help. I stared at him in disbelief. Because suddenly everything clicked. The prescriptions. The appointments. The timing. The impossible moments when things somehow worked out. This man. This manipulative, suspicious, emotionally dangerous man had been helping us long before that rainy night. And judging by the look on his face, there was something else he still wasn't telling me. Something bigger. Much bigger. Then a voice interrupted from behind us. Cold. Sharp. Female. Well, I knew that voice. Unfortunately. Hannah. I turned. And immediately knew something was wrong. Because Hannah Brooks looked worried. Actually worried. The woman who threatened my existence over coffee and eye contact. Worried. Dangerous. Very dangerous. Her eyes moved from me to Elijah. Then she quietly said, "He's going to be furious when he finds out." Silence. I blinked. Once. Twice. What are you talking about? Neither of them answered immediately. Which meant one thing. There was a secret. A big one. And somehow, I was the only person in the room who didn't know it. I hate secrets. Mostly because whenever people keep secrets around me, the secret is usually terrible. Hannah. My voice came out sharper than intended. What aren't you telling me? Silence. The dangerous kind. The kind that makes your stomach prepare for emotional damage. Hannah looked at Elijah. Elijah looked at the floor. Interesting. Very interesting. Because suddenly both of them looked guilty. And Elijah Brooks never looked guilty. Then Hannah sighed. A real sigh. The exhausted kind. Oh, for God's sake. She folded her arms. Tell her. Elijah closed his eyes briefly. That was not encouraging. At all. My heart started beating faster. What? He paused. Then Elijah finally looked at me. And quietly said, "The hospital waiting room." I frowned. What about it? The first time we met. Silence. Then confusion. Because no. That wasn't right. The convenience store. Elijah shook his head slowly. No. My stomach tightened instantly. Oh. No. Because suddenly I remembered. The rainy night comment. The strange look he gave me. The way Hannah said he'd been different before me. The anonymous medical payments. The year. A whole year. And suddenly every piece started connecting. The hospital, I whispered. Elijah nodded. My heart stopped. Because I remembered. A waiting room. Late at night. Months before the rain. I had gone with my mother for one of her appointments. There was a man sitting alone near the vending machines. Head down. Exhausted. Broken. I remembered buying coffee. I remembered talking because I thought he looked like someone having the worst day of his life. And I remembered leaving. That was it. Or at least, I thought that was it. I stared at Elijah. No. No way. That was you. Yes. I sat down immediately. Because my legs suddenly didn't trust me. You never told me. I wanted to. When? Several hundred times. Fair. Unfortunately. Then Hannah sat beside me. Which was alarming by itself. Because Hannah didn't sit beside people. She judged them from expensive distances. G1. That alone scared me. Then she continued. The day you met Elijah in that waiting room. Her voice softened. Strangely. Was the day after our father died. Silence. Complete silence. Because suddenly everything disappeared. The hospital. The lights. The noise. Everything. I looked at Elijah. And for the first time, I understood. The exhaustion. The loneliness. The sadness he carried behind a smile. That day hadn't been a bad day. It had been the worst day of his life. And somehow, I had sat beside him and complained about instant noodles being overpriced. Oh my God. I covered my face immediately. No. Hannah actually laughed. The first genuine laugh I'd ever heard from her. You spent 20 minutes explaining why convenience stores were participating in organized crime. I wanted the floor to swallow me. Immediately. Elijah smiled. That soft smile. The dangerous one. The coffee helped. I looked up. And suddenly his expression changed. Less amused. More honest. Dangerous. Very dangerous. It wasn't the coffee. Silence. His eyes held mine. Steady. Certain. It was you. Oh. Oh. That landed directly in my chest. Because suddenly I understood everything. The rainy night. The wallet. The job. The help. The way he always seemed to find me. It wasn't coincidence. Not even a little. This man had spent a year quietly protecting a woman who didn't even know she mattered to him. And honestly, that should have been romantic. Instead it was slightly terrifying. You sound obsessed. A laugh escaped Hannah immediately. Elijah looked completely unashamed, which somehow made it worse. Then his phone rang. The mood changed instantly. Gone was the warmth. Gone was the relief. His expression hardened. Cold. Sharp. Dangerous. I recognized that look now. Business. Trouble. Bad news. Elijah answered. Listened. Then stood. The color drained from Hannah's face. Interesting. Very interesting. What happened? I asked. Neither answered immediately. Then Elijah looked at me. And for the first time since I'd known him, I saw actual anger. Real anger. The dangerous kind. My board just voted. Silence. Then, they've accepted an acquisition offer. I blinked. What does that mean? Hannah's expression darkened. It means someone is trying to take Elijah's company away from him. And judging by the look on both their faces, they already knew exactly who was behind it. I stared at Elijah. Then Hannah. Then back at Elijah. Okay. A pause. Explain it to me like I'm 5. Neither of them smiled. That was my first warning sign. Hannah folded her arms. Someone is trying to force Elijah out. My stomach tightened. Who? Silence. Dangerous silence. Then Elijah answered. My uncle. Oh. Family again. Of course. Nothing ruins a peaceful week faster than rich relatives. You have an uncle? Unfortunately. That answer alone told me everything. Interesting. Very interesting. Then Hannah sighed. After our father died, our uncle believed the company should have been his. Ah, there it was. Greed. Humanity's most reliable personality trait. But he lost, Hannah continued. He never accepted it. I looked at Elijah. And now? He found investors willing to back him. The way Elijah said it worried me. Calm. Too calm. The calm before expensive disasters. Then my phone buzzed. I ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. And again. Interesting. I pulled it out. Unknown number. 5 missed calls. Then a message arrived. My blood went cold immediately. Because it contained a photograph. A recent photograph. Of me. Leaving the hospital. I showed Elijah. The atmosphere changed instantly. Dangerously. The kind of dangerous that makes the air feel heavier. Elijah's jaw tightened. Hannah stood immediately. What is it? She asked. Then she saw the screen. And suddenly she looked furious. Actually furious. Not Hannah annoyed. Not Hannah disappointed. Furious. The message underneath the photo read, Tell Elijah to accept the deal. Or next time we'll visit your mother. Oh. No. That wasn't business anymore. That was a threat. A real one. My hands started shaking instantly. Not because of me. Because of my mother. The hospital. The surgery. Everything. Then something happened. Something I'd never seen before. Elijah lost his temper. Not loudly. Which somehow made it scarier. He simply looked at the photo. Then stood. Slowly. Every trace of warmth disappeared from his face. Gone. Completely gone. The man standing in front of me wasn't the Elijah who bought coffee. Or laughed at my umbrella attack. Or listened to me complain about pigeons. This was someone else. Someone powerful. Someone dangerous. Someone who had just been given permission to stop being nice. Elijah. His eyes moved to mine. And honestly, that frightened me more. Because they were completely calm. The terrifying kind of calm. I'm ending this. No emotion. No hesitation. Just certainty. Hannah nodded immediately. Like she'd been waiting years to hear those words. Then Elijah looked at me. And suddenly the softness returned. Only for a second. Only for me. I'm sorry. I frowned. For what? Because the next few days are going to get ugly. 3 days later. Seoul exploded. News channels. Business websites. Financial reporters. Everyone was talking about Elijah Brooks. At first I thought the acquisition battle was the story. It wasn't. The story was what Elijah released. Evidence. Years of it. Hidden accounts. Bribes. Fraud. Illegal deals. Board manipulation. Everything. Every secret his uncle had spent years burying. Destroyed. Publicly. The headlines were everywhere. Brooks family scandal. Multi-billion-dollar investigation. CEO exposes internal corruption. I sat in my apartment staring at the television, completely stunned. Because suddenly I understood something. Elijah hadn't been defending himself. He'd been preparing. For years. Strategic man. Terrifying strategic man. Then my phone rang. It was Elijah. I answered immediately. Is it over? Silence. Then. Almost. Something about his voice made me sit upright. What happened? A pause. Longer this time. Then Elijah quietly said, "He knows about you." My stomach dropped. Immediately. Because somehow, I knew exactly who he was. And judging by Elijah's tone, the real fight hadn't started yet. The worst part? I wasn't surprised. Not completely. Because powerful people always say the same thing when they're losing. If I can't control you, I'll hurt what you love. And apparently, I was what Elijah loved. That night Elijah showed up outside my apartment. Not in a suit. Not looking powerful. Just tired. The kind of tired that lives behind your eyes. I opened the door. Immediately crossed my arms. You look terrible. You sound supportive. I try. A faint smile appeared. Gone almost instantly. Then he handed me something. A folder. Oh no. Folders never contain happiness. I opened it. Then froze. Because every page contained information about me. My apartment. My workplace. My mother's hospital. Photographs. Dates. Locations. Someone had been watching. For months. My stomach dropped. Oh. Elijah watched my reaction carefully. I wanted to handle it before you knew. That would have been impossible. I know. Silence. Heavy silence. Then I looked up. What happens now? A pause. Then. I send you somewhere safe. Absolutely not. No. G1. No. His jaw tightened immediately. Interesting. Because Elijah almost never got frustrated with me. Almost. I'm serious. So am I. You've been threatened. And you've been stalked by relatives apparently. That earned me a look. One of those looks. The ones that meant I was being difficult. Correct. But not relevant. I stepped closer. I'm not leaving. G1. No. You're being stubborn. I learned from you. That almost did it. Almost. I saw the corner of his mouth twitch. Victory. Tiny victory. But still. Then suddenly his phone rang. Again. The third call in 10 minutes. He declined it. Immediately. Then it rang again. And again. Interesting. Very interesting. Finally I grabbed the phone from his hand. Before he could stop me. The caller ID made me freeze. Uncle David. Well. That sounded evil. I answered. Elijah's eyes widened. G1. Too late. A man's voice filled the room. Smooth. Calm. Dangerous. Elijah. Nope. Silence. Then. Who is this? I'm the woman you're threatening. Complete silence. Honestly? I was proud of myself. For about 3 seconds. Then the man laughed. Not warmly. Not kindly. The kind of laugh that belongs in documentaries. Interesting. I hated that word immediately. Leave my mother alone. Another pause. Then. Tell Elijah to stop. I rolled my eyes. Wow. Silence. That's your villain speech? Elijah covered his face. Actually covered his face. Meanwhile I continued. I expected better. The man sounded genuinely confused now. Good. You threatened a sick woman. Business requires sacrifice. I gasped dramatically. There it is. There is what? The rich person nonsense. For the first time. The man laughed properly. Interesting. Very interesting. Then his voice changed. Colder. Sharper. More dangerous. You think this is a game? No. I looked directly at Elijah. Then answered quietly. I think you picked the wrong people. Then the line disconnected. The room went completely still. I slowly lowered the phone. Then looked at Elijah. Elijah stared at me. Speechless. Which honestly felt like an achievement. What? A laugh escaped him. Unexpected, disbelieving. You just threatened my uncle. He started it. That made him laugh harder. Actually laugh. The first real laugh I'd heard from him in days. And somehow, that scared me. Because it reminded me how much pressure he'd been carrying. How long he'd been carrying it. Then the laughter faded. And suddenly Elijah stepped closer. Very close. Dangerously close. His expression softened. Completely. You're unbelievable. I pointed at him immediately. Don't make this emotional. Too late. Because the way he was looking at me now, that wasn't friendship. That wasn't concern. That wasn't even affection anymore. And judging by the look on his face, he was done pretending otherwise. Completely done. Which became obvious when he quietly said, "When this is over." Then his eyes held mine. Steady. Certain. I'm taking you on an actual date. Because somehow, after everything, the threats, the company war, the stalking, the hospital, the thing that finally made my heart panic, was one date. And honestly, that felt unfair. For the next 48 hours, I became a hostage. Not technically, but emotionally. Because Elijah refused to let me out of his sight. Breakfast? Together. Work? Escorted. Hospital visits? Escorted. Coffee? Monitored. Apparently being threatened by billionaire relatives came with supervision. It's excessive. It's necessary. It's kidnapping with good manners. It's security. We've been having the same argument for 2 days. Neither of us was winning. Mostly because Elijah had somehow convinced my mother to join his side. Traitors. Both of them. Then on the third day, something strange happened. Nothing. No threats. No messages. No mysterious photographs. Nothing. And honestly, that worried me more. Because dangerous people rarely become reasonable overnight. That evening I found Elijah alone in his office. The first truly quiet moment we had all week. He was staring out the window. Not working. Not talking. Just thinking. Dangerous activity. I knocked lightly. He turned. Immediately softer. Always softer with me now. Dangerous man. You're doing it again. A faint frown appeared. Doing what? Thinking rich person thoughts. That earned me a small smile. Progress. I walked inside. Then stopped. Because for the first time, Elijah looked exhausted again. Not physically. Emotionally. The kind of exhaustion people hide well. Until they can't. My voice softened. Hey. His eyes met mine. And suddenly I knew. Something was wrong. What happened? Silence. Then Elijah exhaled slowly. My uncle agreed to sell. I blinked. Once. Twice. Wait. A pause. That's good. It is. But. Because there was obviously a but. There was always a but. Elijah looked away briefly. Then back at me. The company survives. Another pause. The family doesn't. Oh. That one landed. Because suddenly I understood. This wasn't business anymore. This was grief. The kind that arrives after the fight is over. When there's finally time to feel everything. I sat beside him quietly. No jokes this time. No sarcasm. Just there. Like he had been for me. After a while he laughed softly. Without looking at me. You know? Dangerous opening. Very dangerous. What? I used to think strength meant handling everything alone. I looked at him carefully. The city lights reflected across the glass behind him. And for the first time since I'd met him, he looked peaceful. Not powerful. Not intimidating. Peaceful. Then he continued. I was wrong. Silence settled between us. Warm silence. Comfortable silence. The best kind. Then my phone buzzed. Immediately ruining the moment. I checked the screen. Unknown number. Again. Interesting. Very interesting. I answered cautiously. Hello. The voice on the other end made me sit upright instantly. Because somehow, it was Hannah. And Hannah sounded shocked. Actually shocked. G1. My stomach tightened. What happened? A pause. Then, you need to get here. Every alarm inside me went off. Immediately. Why? Silence. Then Hannah laughed. And somehow, that was worse. What happened? I repeated. Another pause. Then she finally answered. Your mother and my grandmother just teamed up against the entire Brooks family. What? I stared at the phone. Completely frozen. because there was absolutely no version of reality where that sentence should exist. And judging by Hannah's tone, things had somehow become chaotic again. Without us. I arrived at the Brooks estate 20 minutes later, and immediately knew something was wrong. Because there were 3 luxury cars parked outside, 2 security guards arguing, 1 lawyer carrying 3 binders, and Hannah standing on the front steps looking like she'd aged 10 years. Interesting. Very interesting. I got out of the car. What happened? Hannah stared at me, then shook her head. I don't even know where to start. A terrible answer. The worst answer. Then she pointed toward the house. Your mother. Oh no. Never begin a sentence like that. Inside, the situation somehow became stranger. Because sitting in the main living room were my mother, Elijah's grandmother, 3 lawyers, 2 board members, and enough tea to negotiate world peace. Nobody looked upset. Nobody looked angry. Which honestly made everything worse. Because calm older women are significantly more dangerous than angry people. My mother smiled the second she saw me. The smile. The one that meant trouble. G1. No. I haven't said anything yet. No. Across the room, Elijah's grandmother laughed. Actually laughed. Interesting. Very interesting. Because this woman was famous for being terrifying. Yet somehow she looked delighted. I turned toward Hannah. Why are they happy? Because they're winning. That did not help. At all. Then my mother patted the empty seat beside her. Dangerous behavior. I sat cautiously. Immediately suspicious. What happened? The grandmother leaned forward. Elegant. Composed. Dangerous. Then she calmly said, "We fixed your problem." I blinked. Once. Twice. My problem. The stubborn children. Silence. Complete silence. I looked around the room. Nobody seemed confused. Except me. Then realization hit. Oh no. The grandmother nodded. Oh yes. Across the room one of the lawyers actually smiled. Which should have been illegal. My mother folded her arms proudly. We got tired of waiting. Wait. Waiting? Wait. I looked toward Hannah. Hannah was actively trying not to laugh. Traitor. Absolute traitor. Then the grandmother delivered the final blow. Elijah has been in love with you for over a year. I covered my face immediately. No. My mother nodded. Yes. No. Yes. The grandmother looked unimpressed. My grandson has all the subtlety of a brick. That earned an unexpected laugh from everyone. Even the lawyers. Meanwhile, I wanted to disappear. Then the front door opened. And Elijah walked in. Still carrying his laptop. Still on a business call. Completely unaware of the trap waiting for him. Poor man. The second he entered the room. Silence. Every head turned. Including mine. Elijah stopped walking. Immediately. His eyes moved across the room. The lawyers. The board members. His grandmother. My mother. Me. Then slowly. What happened? Nobody answered. The grandmother simply pointed toward an empty chair. Sit down. The most dangerous sentence in human history. Elijah looked at Hannah. Hannah looked away. Abandoned immediately. Then Elijah sat. Carefully. Like a man approaching an active landmine. Smart. Very smart. The grandmother folded her hands. Then calmly announced. We have decided you're both idiots. Then my mother nodded. We reached the same conclusion. I looked at Elijah. Elijah looked at me. And for the first time in weeks, I saw genuine panic. Because suddenly we both realized something. The company war was over. The threats were over. The crisis was over. Which meant our families finally had free time. And honestly, that might have been the most dangerous development yet. Then the grandmother smiled. And said, now let's discuss the wedding. Oh no. Because judging by the look on Elijah's face, he hadn't planned that part either. Wedding. My voice came out significantly louder than intended. Wedding. Across from me, Elijah looked equally horrified. Good. At least we were suffering together. His grandmother remained completely calm. Dangerously calm. The kind of calm that only exists when someone has already made a decision. Eventually, I exhaled. A little. Not much. Then my mother smiled. See? That's better. No, it isn't. It is. It really isn't. The older women ignored me completely, which honestly felt rude. Then Elijah finally spoke. Grandmother. The warning in his voice was obvious. Unfortunately, She seemed immune. We're having a conversation. No. We are. No. The woman actually smiled. Very interesting. Because suddenly I understood where Elijah got it from. The stubbornness. The confidence. The refusal to lose arguments. Genetics. Dangerous genetics. Then one of the lawyers cleared his throat awkwardly. Should I leave? Yes. Elijah and I answered simultaneously. The poor man practically sprinted out. Smart. Very smart. 10 minutes later, the room finally emptied. Leaving only me, Elijah, my mother, his grandmother, which somehow still felt overcrowded. Then my mother stood. The grandmother stood. And without explanation, both women left. Together. Talking. Laughing. Like lifelong friends. Traitors. The front door closed. Silence. Complete silence. I slowly turned toward Elijah. Elijah slowly turned toward me. Then simultaneously. What just happened? For the first time in weeks. We both laughed. Real laughter. The exhausted kind. The survived a disaster kind. Then the laughter faded. And suddenly the room felt different. Quieter. Softer. No company war. No threats. No family crisis. Just us. Dangerous. Very dangerous. Elijah walked toward the window. I joined him. For a while neither of us spoke. The city lights stretched across Seoul beneath us. Beautiful. Peaceful. Normal. Finally. Then Elijah broke the silence. You know? That tone again. The dangerous one. What? A faint smile appeared. You never answered. I frowned. Answered what? His eyes moved toward me. Steady. Warm. Certain. The date. Oh. Because somehow, in the middle of family warfare, hospital visits, corporate destruction, and emotional trauma, I'd forgotten. The actual date. The one he'd promised. Interesting. Very interesting. I folded my arms. Mostly because my heart had suddenly become annoying again. You still want one? That made him laugh softly. A real laugh. The kind I loved. Dangerous realization. Then Elijah stepped closer. G1. The way he said my name should honestly require a license. I've wanted one for over a year. Oh, that one landed. Hard. Because suddenly I remembered. The hospital. The coffee. The waiting room. The year. A whole year. This ridiculous man had been carrying feelings around for 12 months while pretending to be normal. Psychotic behavior. Romantic. But psychotic. I shook my head slowly. You're lucky you're attractive. That earned a smile. Then another step closer. And another. It felt dangerous. Until suddenly there wasn't much space left between us at all. His eyes held mine. Soft. Certain. Home. So, he asked quietly. Is that a yes? I pretended to think about it. For exactly 2 seconds. Then smiled. Only if I pick the coffee shop. A pause. Then. Why? I pointed directly at him. Because the last time I trusted you with coffee, you changed my entire life. Then Elijah laughed. The warm, beautiful laugh that had somehow become my favorite sound. And judging by the look on his face, he had absolutely no intention of leaving my life ever again. The first date should have been simple. Coffee. Conversation. No corporate scandals. No family interventions. No emotional disasters. Simple. Unfortunately, I was involved. Which meant simple never stood a chance. The coffee shop sat on the same street where we first met. Not planned. At least that's what Elijah claimed. Liar. A very attractive liar. I arrived first. 5 minutes early. Which immediately annoyed me because I never arrived early for anything. Then Elijah walked in. And every woman in the building noticed. Of course they did. Tall. Calm. Unfairly handsome. The human embodiment of unnecessary confidence. Dangerous man. Very dangerous man. He sat down across from me. Smiling. Immediately suspicious. What? What? You're smiling. Am I not allowed? No. That made him laugh. And honestly, that felt like victory. Then the waitress appeared. Took our order. Left. Normal. Everything was normal. For exactly 4 minutes. Then the waitress returned. Holding 2 coffees. And stopped. Completely stopped. Her eyes moved between us. Then narrowed. Interesting. Very interesting. Oh my God. I frowned. What? She pointed directly at me. You. A terrible beginning. The worst beginning. Then she pointed at Elijah. And you. Silence. I looked at Elijah. Elijah looked at me. Neither of us understood. Then the waitress gasped dramatically. You're the umbrella couple. What? The entire coffee shop suddenly became interested. Immediately. Heads turned. Phones appeared. People whispered. Oh no. No, no, no. Because somehow, someone had uploaded security footage from the rainy night. Months ago. And apparently, the video had become famous. I stared at Elijah. Slowly. Very slowly. Tell me that's not true. His expression became suspiciously neutral. Elijah. A pause. Then, it got 20 million views. Silence. Complete silence. I closed my eyes immediately. Because obviously. Of course. Naturally. The most embarrassing moment of my life was viral. The waitress looked delighted. I've watched that video like 30 times. I wanted to move countries. Immediately. Then she pointed at Elijah. The way you looked at her after she attacked you with the umbrella? Because suddenly Elijah looked uncomfortable. Actually uncomfortable. The mighty Elijah Brooks. Uncomfortable. Victory. Tiny victory. But still. The waitress continued. You were already in love. The entire coffee shop agreed. Out loud. Immediately. I turned toward Elijah. His ears were slightly red. Oh. Oh, that was new. Interesting. Elijah. No. You're blushing. I'm not. You absolutely are. For the first time since I'd known him. The man looked trapped. Completely trapped. And honestly, watching Elijah Brooks lose an argument to an entire coffee shop was one of the happiest moments of my life. Then suddenly my phone buzzed. A message. From Hannah. I opened it. Immediately laughed. What? I turned the screen toward him. A screenshot. Of the viral umbrella video. And underneath it. Took you a year to get the girl. Embarrassing. For the first time all day. Elijah groaned. And honestly, that was even better than the coffee. A week later. It rained. Of course it did. Because apparently the weather had become emotionally invested in our relationship. I was leaving work when the sky opened without warning. Within seconds people were running. Umbrellas appeared. Chaos. Normal soul behavior. Then my phone buzzed. Elijah. I answered immediately. Don't. Silence. What? Don't tell me you're outside. He paused. Then. I'm outside. I closed my eyes. Of course he was. Because apparently billionaires no longer had hobbies. When I stepped outside, Elijah was standing across the street holding an umbrella. The exact same expression he always had when dealing with me. Calm. Patient. Dangerously fond. I walked over. You know normal people text. I did text. Not before arriving. I know. Rude. Very rude. We started walking together. Rain tapping softly against the umbrella. The city glowing around us. For a while neither of us spoke. And strangely, it felt perfect. Then Elijah stopped. Right in the middle of the sidewalk. Interesting. Very interesting. Because suddenly he looked nervous. Actually nervous. A rare event. Like spotting a unicorn. What? His eyes met mine. And for a second I saw it. Not the CEO. Not the businessman. Not the man who always had a plan. Just Elijah. The man from the hospital. The man from the convenience store. The man who never stopped showing up. Then he smiled softly. The truth. Dangerous beginning. Very dangerous. What truth? A pause. Then. I didn't help you that rainy night. I blinked. Once. Twice. What? He laughed quietly. The wallet. The coffee. The ride home. His head shook slowly. That wasn't me helping you. Confusion hit immediately. Because that made absolutely no sense. Then Elijah stepped closer. Rain tapping softly against the umbrella above us. And quietly said, G1. His eyes held mine. Steady. Certain. The day you sat beside me in that hospital. Silence. I hadn't spoken to anyone for days. Oh. Immediately. Oh. Because suddenly I remembered. The tired man. The vending machine coffee. The empty waiting room. The sadness. Everything. My father had just died. His voice stayed calm. But I heard it underneath. The grief. The loneliness. The weight. And suddenly my chest hurt. Because this man had been carrying that memory alone for so long. Then Elijah smiled. Softly. You sat down beside a complete stranger. A pause. You complained about convenience store prices for 20 minutes. I groaned immediately. He laughed. Then continued. You made me laugh on a worst day of my life. Silence. Warm silence. The kind that settles directly into your heart. And then he said the thing that finally broke me. The truth is. A pause. I've been trying to repay that kindness ever since. My eyes filled instantly. Traitorous eyes. Absolute traitors. I looked away. Immediately. Because crying in public builds character for nobody. Then Elijah gently lifted my chin. Just enough. Look at me. Dangerous request. Very dangerous. I did anyway. And there he was. The man who found my wallet. The man who protected my mother. The man who fought his family. The man who chose me. Again and again. For over a year. Before I even knew. You know what's annoying? I whispered. A faint smile touched his mouth. What? I think I'd have fallen for you anyway. That made him laugh. The warm laugh. My favorite laugh. The one that always felt like home. Then he leaned forward, resting his forehead lightly against mine. The rain continued falling around us. The city lights blurred softly behind him. And somehow, everything felt full circle. No company war. No family drama. No contracts. No secrets. Just us. Exactly where we were supposed to be. 6 months later, my mother and Elijah's grandmother became completely unbearable. They had group chats, meetings, plans, spreadsheets. Nobody trusted them anymore. Not even Hannah. Especially not Hannah. One afternoon I walked into Elijah's apartment and found all 3 women discussing venue options. I immediately left. Not my business. Absolutely my business. But still. Elijah found me hiding in the kitchen 10 minutes later. You abandoned me. I survived. You left me alone with them. I had faith. You had selfishness. Fair. Very fair. Then he handed me a cup of coffee. I stared at it suspiciously. He stared back. Equally suspicious. You made this? Yes. A pause. Then. Should we be worried? That earned a laugh. The real kind. The happy kind. The kind that sounded completely different from the man I'd met a year earlier. And that's when I realized something. The funny thing is, I always thought Elijah helped me that rainy night. But looking back, I think we saved each other. And after that, he never really left my life again.